Welcome to the Arrington Gavin Show. Real talk, big opinions, and fearless conversations. From the front lines of politics to the latest in pop culture. From breaking sports headlines to the stories that move the world. Nothing's off limits, and nobody's holding back. Arrington Gavin is here to break it down, build it up, and keep it all the way real. So turn it up, lean in, and let's get into it. This is the Arrington Gavin Show.
What's happening, my friends? Welcome to the Arrington Gavin Show, your go-to spot for sharp insights, bold opinions, and unfiltered takes on the biggest stories of the day, whether it's politics, sports, pop culture, or the latest buzz. Look, we're diving deep and keeping it real, so please do me a favor. Kick back, stay informed, and get ready to join the conversation. Look, on today's conversation, I am honored to have on my dear friend of the show, but also a dear friend and mentor, Dr. Eric Claville. He is a political and legal analyst. He's also the host of the Claville Report, as well as State of the Water, which you can tune in on WNSB Hot 91.1 every Sundays. For those that are not in the Hampton Roads area, you can go online to WNSB online. You can download the app. Please tune in to the show. It is awesome. He has a sit-down conversation where he speaks with influential folks from the world of politics and community. And he really, one of the big things about his programs, man, he educates the people. And that's where, I hope that we're somewhat close, as popular as Dr. Eric Claville's programs. When we're trying to educate you. Again, I'm speaking, yes, it's opinionated, but we're here to help guide young people, right? Folks that are unfamiliar when it comes to politics on a local level. We see and we watch all the time and hear about stuff that's happening in Washington, which is important, right? It's important to stay informed. But at the end of the day, what happens on a federal level trickles down to a state level and comes down on a local level. And if you are unaware of those individuals that are serving your local communities, or just unaware of the positions that they hold in their roles, that's, hey, we got to do better. We have to do better, y'all. But look, we're going to have a great conversation with Dr. Eric Claville. We're going to talk about Virginia politics. We're also going to talk about some federal politics as well. And just all the above. We're going to catch up with Dr. Eric Claville because it has been a minute since he's been on. So much stuff has been happening in our political climate. As of right now, in real time, we're still currently in a shutdown. So hopefully that ends very, very soon. We have a lot of individuals who is feeling the effects of the shutdown. And we just, we keep them in our prayers because it's difficult to, especially for folks that live in, say, a one income household. It's scary when your next check is not coming in, or you're being forced to work, and guess what, you're not getting paid to. You're getting forced to work and you don't even know if you're even going to receive back pay. But if you don't come to work, you lose your job. So it's almost a sign of like, you damn you do, you damn you don't. Like it's not fair. And so we're just going to kind of catch up and talk a little bit about a little bit of everything here on the Arrington Gavin Show. As always, my friends, for those who happen to be watching us right now on YouTube, do me a favor, like, subscribe. We want to continue to build those subscribers and the viewerships, which we do see on a daily basis. And I thank you for those supporters out there. But let's continue to grow the momentum, grow the narrative of great conversation, and just let's continue to motivate each other and push that momentum going. So again, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Arrington Gavin Show YouTube channel, and in addition to watching us on YouTube, you can also check out past episodes of the Arrington Gavin Show on GOATverse TV. That's right, GOATverse TV. Ways you can tune into that is by simply downloading the app, the GOATverse TV app, on the App Store, Google Play Store, Roku, as well as Amazon Fire TV. And then if you want to listen to us on the go, you can do so. We're available on all major podcast platforms. So no need if you happen to be on Odyssey or iHeart or Spotify and you're like, where is it? All you have to do is just type in the Arrington Gavin Show, bam, and I'm right there. So you'll be able to listen to us on the go. And then lastly, you can also listen to us on the radio airways, my friends. That's right. You probably listen to us right now in New Orleans by way of WBOK 1230 AM. What New Orleans is talking about. You can tune tune into the Arrington Gavin Show weeknights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Again, that's only on WBOK 12:30 a.m. What New Orleans is talking about. And then we're going to head on to the Metro Atlanta area to WDJY 99.1 FM Straight Talk. You can tune into the Arrington Gavin Show weeknights at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's only on WDJY 99.1 FM Straight Talk. And then finally, we're honored to be a part of Afro Vibes Radio. You can tune into the Arrington Gavin Show Saturdays at noon Central Time, only on Afro Vibes Radio out of Houston. So again, we are continue to grow each and every day, and I thank you all for taking 1 hour of your time to tune into the Arrington Gavin Show. So before we head to a commercial break, I love the segment that we started a while back called "What is the Role and Why is it Important?" And the genesis of this segment was to inform and educate us on the positions and the roles, political positions on in politics. And we started off on a local level, and we're still on that local level. So we started off the very first position that we spoke about is school board member. So now let's see, where are we currently at now? We are now in the judicial branch on the state government level. So we graduated from local government, and now we're on state government. So first position in the state government, the appellate and trial courts. Okay, the appellate and trial courts, which handle civil, criminal, and family law cases within the state. Again, if you hear about trial courts, appellate courts, and trial courts handles civil, criminal, and family law cases within the state. So this is all a part of still under the judicial branch, but on a state level. As you know, we have the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. You have that on a federal level. You also have it on a state level. So again, I hope that was helpful, my friends. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'll be honored to bring on my good friend, radio host, as well as political and legal analyst, Dr. Eric Claville. Do not go anywhere, my friends. We'll be right back after these commercial breaks. You're listening to the Arrington Gavin Show.
Every man has a story to tell. Your ambitions, your achievements, your legacy. Your suit should reflect that story, crafted precisely, designed for impact, and tailored exclusively for you. We work with only the finest fabrics, luxurious wools, silk, linen, and blends from world-renowned mills in Italy, the UK, and India. These fabrics are the foundation of custom suits that exude elegance and stand the test of time. But a suit isn't just about fabric, it's about fit, and it's about confidence, and it all starts with you. When you work with me, you'll receive a personalized consultation, whether in person or over Zoom. Together, we'll explore your vision and discuss your needs, and we're going to bring your ideas to life. My journey as a designer includes apprenticing under New York-based designer Claville Report, showcasing collections at New York Fashion Week, Algeria Fashion Week, and the prestigious Baltimore Met Gala. That experience is what we bring to every suit we create, from weddings to corporate events and everything in between. We specialize in crafting one-of-a-kind suits for life's most significant moments. Dapper Luke has been recognized as one of Baltimore's best menswear in 2023, and I was honored to be one of the 10 designers selected for the prestigious Baltimore Met Gala. With over 900 satisfied clients, we proudly serve Virginia Beach and Baltimore, bringing world-class designs to these incredible communities. We don't just make suits, we craft confidence. Your suit will fit your body, your style, and it will tell your story. Book your free online personal consultation today. Visit www.dapperluke.com.
Become a man of distinction with Rugged Evolution Beard Care. Order our scented beard oils and beard balms to help you maintain and grow the perfect beard. Order today. Try our men's care products like the full body exfoliating cleansing bars, body wash, smooth stash, and more. Log on to our website or download our app to place your orders. Rugged Evolution Beard Care. We're your luxury but affordable men's care line. And remember,
rugged is the new smooth.
And we still in traffic.
I don't look familiar, do I? Not in this seat,
Hey, what's that you listening to?
Here to host today on the
Hey, turn it up.
With me?
Yeah, this that new GoatVerse app. I got you.
So y'all want to know where the goats are? They're off on the sidelines.
Looking for fresh, relevant content wherever you go?
What was the name of that he said?
Introducing GoatVerse TV,
GoatVerse, that's what it's called.
the free streaming app that brings you the best podcasts, current events, and thought-provoking opinions all in one place. Download it now from the Apple Store or Play Store. In Goats, we trust.
All right, my friends, welcome back. Welcome back to the Arrington Gavin Show. I am your friend, your homie, Arrington Gavin. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm honored to have on my good friend of the show. You know him, you love him. We're excited to bring back Dr. Eric Claville, radio host of the State of the Water and the Claville Report, the award-winning the Claville Report, as well as political and legal analyst. Without further ado, let me go ahead and bring on my friend, my mentor, Dr. Eric Claville. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Arrington. How are you?
I can't complain. Doing great. There's so much stuff happening in our political space. So much great stuff happening in the local area here in Hampton Roads. We're coming off of a busy homecoming week, and so much activity has occurred. But as we were kind of chopping it up a little bit before the show, there has been just so much attention to Virginia as well as Hampton Roads area. I mentioned it was homecoming season, so we had a bunch of homecomings. We had 3 homecomings over one weekend, which was insane. And then you also had Norfolk hosted New York Attorney General Letitia James, who was in for a trial, so that brought in a lot of attention. And then of course we have big elections happening here in Virginia, so that has made a lot of national news, which I know we'll get talking to that shortly. But first, I want to catch up with you. How's everything been? What's been going on lately?
Well, things are great. We are excited to continue to be really the number one talk show here in Hampton Roads on every Sunday, as you mentioned before. State of the Water on WNSBonline.org. That's WNSBonline.org. Known here in the Commonwealth as the Soul of VA, and also the Claville Report at 12:30 on every Sunday as well. So we're very fortunate and blessed to be able to bring not just information about Virginia, where we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to you to address issues important to the community, but also on the Claville Report, where we address national and international issues, breaking it down from a law, policy, and politics perspective, and basically finding out how does it affect you on the ground, because at the end of the day, all politics is local.
I love that. All politics is local, and it's very true. It's very true because I come across, especially during election season, I come across a lot of folks that avoid politics, right? For one, everybody, I think it's pretty normal. Everybody avoids the politics conversation.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of folks that chooses not to want to stay engaged or not to want to stay informed because they're like, I don't follow it, so that's why I'm not getting out to vote. Right. We had a primary a while back here in Virginia in Hampton Roads, and it was low turnout, which I remember watching your commentary. I believe you might have been on 13 News, which is a local ABC affiliate out here, where you had acknowledged that primary votership is common to be much lower than the general look. But we've seen, voting turnout is always going to be, I think, one of the biggest goals is, right, to get as many people registered, to get as many people out to vote. Again, we're in tough times currently. In real time, we're still witnessing this shutdown, this record number of days shutdown, government shutdown. And Virginia, Hampton Roads, we have a lot of government and federal workers who are feeling the effects of that. Dr. Claville, have you and I know you've been around with so many of the local forums. We're not just local in the Hampton Roads, but really throughout the state of Virginia. What have you heard firsthand, that folks from the community share about to like local to elected officials?
Well, first things first, you mentioned voting. Of course, persons can be turned off or fatigued by all the political ads or the infighting and so forth. And let's face it, we're all, working. We're all trying to make ends meet, trying to tuck a little bit away for the future, making sure there's food on the table. And, life happens, or as we say, life be lifing, right? But at the end of the day, you got to stay informed because it's just not what they're doing, but what they do affects you. It's what you also do by voting. Voting is your voice. It's the most powerful voice that you have. Our democracy is worth it to be protected because it is the process and it's the power of the vote. One person, one vote can change an entire election and change the balance. Just here, you may not remember, Gavin, but in the Commonwealth of Virginia, several election cycles previously in the House of Delegates, there was one delegate seat that was changed, and it really changed policy for years to come. So we're still being impacted by that by one vote. There was one candidate won, the Democratic candidate won by one vote. But then what ended up happening is that they found one vote on the Republican side to tie it. And then after the many challenges, they agreed to, they were judged, they agreed for the name to be pulled out of a fishbowl, and that's what happened. And the Republican name was pulled. And it changed the balance of the House, which basically gave the Republicans control. And we're still looking at some of those policies today. So I had intimate knowledge of that particular race as well. So when we say your vote doesn't matter, trust me, your vote matters. So let's take a look at really what's impacting what we see today. There are a lot of individuals that are impacted by, like you said, the record number of days of shutdown. This may be the longest government shutdown in history. Of course, the previous longest one was the last term of current President Donald Trump when he served as the 45th president. And this may be longer than that. And during that time period, it was something where, well, first of all, let me just say, anytime there's a government shutdown, you don't get a paycheck, trust me. All right? Persons are not getting checks. When you're not getting a check, that impacts everybody in the household. So it's very important that we ensure that our federal workers, our civil service workers, who supply very invaluable services to all of us, even though you may not use the Social Security office, every day, when you need it, you need it.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. It's kind of like
it's good to have them resources now. It's good to have them tools on the side.
Look, Gavin, it's kind of like the light switch. You want it, like you may not flip it on, 24/7, but when you flip it, you want it to turn on.
That's right.
Same thing about our services here in the country. So we still have civil service workers who are coming to work every day, but not getting paid.
Not getting paid at all.
There was one story about an air traffic controller who basically was passing out flyers after the shift saying, I have to drive rideshare in order to put food on the table after my long shift as an air traffic controller. Now, let me tell you, if it's one job that 100% of the time you got to be 100% right, that's an air traffic controller. So you don't really want to mess with people's pay and lives like that. But we do have this stalemate between Republicans and Democrats in Congress, which is over the passage of a continuing budget in order to fund the government, which basically will enact the drastic cuts in Medicaid expansion, which means that the subsidies that were provided through the Affordable Care Act, also known by the popular name Obamacare, will be cut. Gavin, that means now you and I may not benefit directly from the expansion of Medicaid, right? But we do benefit by lower premiums. But there are others that benefit directly by stating that without those subsidies, they won't have health care. Now, if you don't have health care, number one, you got to be able to eat. And we're going to talk about the impact on SNAP food benefits, a supplemental nutrition program, which are not only for persons who are struggling or low income, but it's also for our senior citizens.
Yes.
That need a hand, right? All right. So that impacts a lot of people, right? And there are states that are running out of those dollars that cannot make it up because what's going to happen at the end of this month. And we're talking about the holiday season as well. So, Gavin, there's a lot that's impacting what we see now as far as economic policies. We haven't even talked about Doge and the drastic cuts of jobs. I know someone personally who, was a victim of Doge. They lost their
Wow.
job. They've been doing it for decades, and one day they were cut. Of course, the ebbs and flows of being hired back and not coming into work or because of the shutdown and things of that nature. Again, you're impacting persons, families, and livelihoods. And because of that, a lot of persons have lost a lot of trust in the way that this particular administration is running our federal government.
No, I mean, very true. When you look at the beginning of this administration, I mean, you mentioned Doge, so that you look at cuts, government cuts, federal cuts, job cuts, the whole 9 yards. So again, within, I remember the first 6 months I had on a gentleman is Hendril Remus. He's a former state Democratic chair for the state of Tennessee, and we were just discussing again at that time. It was just the first 6 months of this administration, and there was so much turmoil because folks were losing their job, and they were, people were looking at emails like, okay, what email am I going to see this morning? I mean, they were nervous opening their computers because they didn't know if they had a job or not, which is not the feeling to feel every single day you're going to work, right? And then in addition to that, we're seeing cuts being funding being cut from education, right? We already have, we have underfunded schools in general. We're seeing a huge underfunding from our historically Black colleges and universities, which I know we'll talk a little later on from that. And then we have public media, which is extremely important because that's how a lot of us, especially folks that live in more rural areas, are staying informed of what's happening in the world. And it's sad that they're being cut. I want to ask you a follow-up question on the shutdown. We're seeing the kind of the talking points or the theater amongst both sides, like who's to blame, whose fault is this shutdown? From your perspective, who's really at fault in this, right? I mean, it's just everybody's always asking, oh, it's the Democrats' fault. The Democrats need to get together. Then they're like, well, you know what? It's the Republicans. They're the ones that. So it's like, for the everyday person that is just clueless and saying, who is really the blame, or is this truly just both sides are at fault in a case like this?
Well, I'm not going to say who's at blame, but I will tell you what each side is fighting for. On the Democratic side, who don't control the majority, by the way. And I want to make sure from just civics, let's give a quick civics lesson. We have three branches of government: the executive branch, which is the White House, the president; the legislative branch, which is the House of Congress, both the House of Representatives and also the Senate. And then you have the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court, right? Those are the heads of those branches. All three of those branches are held by the Republicans. They control them off the top, okay? They have the majority in that administration. So there's procedural rules that they can actually implement in order to bypass the Democratic stalemate and not wanting to negotiate. And where they don't want to go, the Republicans don't want to negotiate with Democrats, they can bypass that and pass the bill and the government opens. Now, here's what ends up happening. The Democrats are holding out because if they agree to fund the government and open the government back up, or if they would agree to avoid a shutdown previously, then this is what would have taken place. The $1.3 trillion that was cut in order to fund the tax cuts would have gone into effect. That's really what it is. So when you take a look at these, why Democrats are doing what they're doing, that's exactly what they're doing. They're wanting to come back to the table with Republicans to say, hey, we need some negotiation on this healthcare because we've got the numbers, right? But keep in mind, the Big Beautiful Bill, which was the reconciliation bill that was passed, the popular name is Big Beautiful Bill, as coined by the White House. Basically, it was pushed through both the House and the Senate. Matter of fact, each side, after they voted for it, the Republicans voted for it, and keep in mind the Democrats did not vote for it on either side. After they voted for it, they wrote each other, the House wrote the Senate, and the Senate wrote the Republicans wrote the House, saying, please change this. Don't let this pass the way it is. Please make these changes. And what was happening is that they were being pushed by their leadership in the House, the majority leader and then the whip, in order to pass that bill the way that the White House wanted to pass. So that's where you find, what is happening. So they wanted to stop this bill from going into effect, because once it goes into effect, it's hard to, bring it back, right?
Very true.
Once tax cuts go into effect, they're cut. Anything that adds to it is called a tax increase, which nobody wants to, be known as a tax increase legislator. However, that's reality of what we're looking at now. Is this important enough to hold the government at a standstill? Because what will happen is that one side or the other is going to get blamed. Well, you take a look at the numbers. As I mentioned before, there are people that will not have health insurance once it's going into effect because of the supplements that they receive. States are not going to be able to make up those dollars. They're just not. They're too voluminous. They're in the billions of dollars. They're just not going to be able to do it. It's hundreds of millions on some states, but billions of dollars, right? With that being the case, Arrington, what we find now is that states are going to have to make hard decisions. If in fact these cuts don't go into place. So if the government opens back up, healthcare gets cut. Not only that, but certain funding from higher education also as part of that goes into a permanent cut. In addition to that, we also look at the monies that's running out in the interim for supplemental nutrition programs, also known as SNAP. So individuals will now go to the store and want to swipe their card for food, and it's not going to work because there's no money there. Now, keep in mind, one thing this country is not short of, that's food. We have so much food that sometimes we have to destroy it because we don't have enough buyers on the market to buy it.
Wow.
So we have food, but as far as the funding, the funds to pay for that food, where is that at? So, and we haven't even talked about the tariffs of the trade, but
it was because and it's so many, and that's what it's actually. It kind of walks me through my next question. I got a couple of questions I want to ask. So when I'm hearing from what's happening with this shutdown, I am witnessing a lot of state power kind of going against the grain of what's being told from Washington, right? Where we have Illinois, the state of Illinois, we have Maryland, we have Governor Westmore out of Maryland, Governor Pritzker out of Illinois, kind of going against the basically what they're being told from Washington to do in regards to having ICE officers come to their states. And in a sense, because I'm bringing this question up because I'm always trying to educate our listeners on exactly who has the power in a sense. Is the federal still going to be somewhat above, say, the state power of an individual state, or can a state continue to because they're kind of clashing? And then you see the administration saying, well, you know what, I could possibly just take away that funding, which is eventually going to hit hard, as you mentioned, if a state has billions in their bank account where the federal level has trillions. So it's, in a sense, is it a smart strategy for state elected leaders to kind of rebel against what's being told or given from Washington?
Well, I'll give you the lawyer answer. It all depends, right?
Okay.
So right now, you're right. There is a back and forth, a struggle right now, not just in perception, but we're in practice. And we're getting into, we are going to get into some legal realms as well on who actually can control the military, who actually can, what the federal government can make states do, and what states can do to push back, right? We find it now happen in the redistricting race or scenarios that we have in the country. I coined this as the redistricting arms race, very similar to a military's arms race, in order to build up, reserves and the biggest and the baddest weapons so that you can be the bully on the block, right? Well, the White House is pushing a lot of Republican states. We see several that have already started the process of redrawing districts in order to get more seats for Republicans. So some Democratic states have now pushed back. California, and more specifically the Commonwealth of Virginia, has just went into special session. the last week of October for this same scenario. So we see that the military enforcement by nationalizing the National Guard for this emergency. What is the emergency? How long can they actually do that?
Mm-hmm.
We also see, again, ICE enforcement, immigration in law enforcement taken to a level we've never seen before in this country. And I would say, as you're seeing something that hasn't happened since post Civil War, right? I mean, pre Civil War. So, where you had enforcement of what's called trappers in order to get, runaway chattel or slaves and things of that nature. So, again, just the draconian type of enforcement behavior that we're finding, draconian policies that we have that are happening down the pipe. Again, we haven't seen this. A lot of persons don't know really how to deal with it. Even the White House themselves, they're utilizing some policies back in the 1700s that haven't been used since the 1700s in order to justify their use of certain aspects of their policies.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're in uncharted waters, and it's very interesting to see how each state responds and local government responds, but even more so, how we the voters respond, because we the people, we make this republic, we make this democracy. So by voting, we can make a change.
Two final questions I want to in the in the federal aspect of what's happening in our political climate. First thing, what I've noticed, I've noticed, and I'm seeing a lot of, you see it in the mainstream news, is that this is this is the administration kind of having a revenge tour, going after X, Y, and Z, going after their political enemies. Now, I've said it in my personal opinion on this program that I do see it as a somewhat of a revenge tour when you see the individuals that the administration is going after. I know a while back, Jimmy Kimmel show was canceled for a short period. Jimmy Kimmel, popular late night host off of ABC, who has been there for years, was let go because of wording that he said about a few days after the assassination of conservative activist, Charlie Kirk, which the joke was not directed to the Kirk family. If they watched the full monologue, it was a joke. A joke that was digged to the sitting president. Now he's currently back on air and he's still making his jabs at the White House. But that was one, and we've heard the president say, okay, next is Jimmy Fallon, next is going to be Seth Meyers, next is going to be, because Stephen Colbert has got a show canceled. So you're seeing somewhat of a, I won't say attack, but you're seeing almost like a revenge tour against the media that is on the opposing side or viewpoint of this administration. And in addition to that, we just had not too long ago here in our home area of Hampton Roads, the Attorney General Letitia James was on trial, which she was an individual when she was first elected, had acknowledged that, hey, look, I'm going after the President Trump, which I'm like, oh, that's bold. That's really bold, right there, because you never want to tie in the justice system and as a political tool in a sense, at least in my opinion. But in one case, and I kind of play 50-50 here, in one case, I do believe that news media should be bipartisan. It should be nonpartisan. It shouldn't pick really a side. But I get it as far as it should have a place in a sense. Like you should have your conservative media, you should have your liberal media, you should have the media that leads more in the middle. So I appreciate the place for it, and everybody has their should be allowed to tune in whatever they want to tune in. But in some cases, I do believe that it does get kind of old if it seems like you're always going after this guy. You cannot not expect somebody trying to come after. Being a person that works in media, what's your take on that, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. So I'll discuss what you mentioned as sort of the revenge tour first. Well, when you take a look at what is happening, the indictments that are taking place and the pressuring to prosecute various individuals through the Department of Justice, that's exactly what it is, right? basically the president is going after those that went after him, and whether it be Bolton, his former national security advisor, or the former prosecutor of him. Of course, James Comey and the like. So you're going to see a lot of that. And what is happening is that we're finding that some of these charges, if not all of them, are not going to stand. I mean, they're very shaky. They're very shaky. So yeah, here in Norfolk, Letitia James was here and to plead guilty or not guilty to the charges of mortgage fraud, and of course she pleaded not guilty. So again, you're seeing the president act upon what he said, and let me tell you, this time is a little different. 40 his first term he was learning. Second term he brought in all of his loyalists and those individuals that are enacting policy. We're seeing Project 2025. We could probably do another show on that. If you remember, for about 2 years, I have held multiple town halls with elected officials, and also on my show, I talked about and we dissected Project 2025, and which is the now playbook that's being utilized in order to reshape federal government in ultra conservative and viewpoints and others, right? So we see that what is happening. Elections do matter because whoever wins is able to do what they will. Now, keep in mind, we do have checks and balances in our country, but this time we see where some of the checks and balances are stifled or have been removed, and we're finding now that a lot of persons are now questioning democracy as a whole. Is there any pushback that can happen? Those that do push back find themselves squarely in the bullseye of this administration, but then others, they continue moving forward. A lot of people shy away because, again, when you have control, when you have power, use it, because you never know when you're going to have it again. And that's what this White House is doing. One thing I will say is that they are wielding, the power that they have in unprecedented ways. And it goes back to what I just said. When you have power, use it, because you never know when you'll have it again. The question is, how do you use it? For good, for just a few, bad, again, for a lot, targeted, or use it for the good of the country as a whole. So that's a personal decision, that's a party decision, that's a policy decision. But those decisions can be dictated by us, you, I, we the people, we the voters, to vote in what we believe the country should be, our state or our Commonwealth, in you and I case, or our communities, right? Our cities, our school boards. We have that power to actually vote and voice and trust the process. So I would just say, even though there may be a lot of trepidation, you got to trust the process, because the process works. It's deliberate and it's on purpose, and that's a good thing. And I will say this: a lot of persons say, "Oh, I want a businessman or somebody in business, corporate America running government. They know how government should run." The answer is no, they don't. Business runs by the bottom line, right? You create a product or service. Is it making money? Is it not? If not, you get rid of the product or service, you change it, or you get rid of the company, or you get rid of the board, whatever the case may be, the president, whatever. But government works for the people. Government is supposed to be compassionate. It's supposed to look for the need of the people. And whereas business looks for the highest buyer, government looks for the most vulnerable to see how government can help.
I love that take, because the first person that came to mind, and this is really random, was the late Herman Cain, who was originally a founder of or CEO of a pizza chain or a pizza company. And at the end of the day, I'm like, yes, he is a business owner. Yes, he had a successful company, but his knowledge is in pizza. Pizza can't be it can't leave for the whole country. And so I appreciate you saying that, because I have always had that same thought, like, well, maybe, obviously if a successful individual made millions, okay, maybe they can bring that success to this. But I look at it, I use a sports analogy. We're seeing right now in real time one of the greatest head coaches of all time, one of the winningest, Bill Belichick, who had a successful career in the NFL, is really having a horrible career in college. So obviously it shows that if he's
horrible start of a career.
Well, excuse me, horrible start. I apologize. Horrible start of a career. Yes.
And keep in mind, he before he was successful with the Patriots, he did coach the Browns. So
that's right. That's right. So it takes a learning thing. But look, Dr. Claville, I want to transition to Virginia politics. Obviously, we're both residents of the state of Virginia, and we have a huge election cycle happening. So which I'll start from the top all the way to some of the state positions, some of the local state races. We have a gubernatorial race between two women. We're going to witness history regardless. Whoever comes out as victorious. We have former Virginia Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, Democratic nominee, and we also have the current Lieutenant Governor, Republican nominee, Winsome Earl Sears. They recently had their debate held at Norfolk State. Behold the green and gold, right? And it was interesting. There was folks that even said, well, Winsome kind of came across as this bully tactic, and then you had Abigail, very calm, very collective. I mean, I watched some of the post interviews because it was let me see, the debate was on Nexar, and so you had The Hill that was interviewing House Speaker Don Scott, as well as former Governor Bob McDonnell. And I will say, Bob McDonnell, who's a Republican, didn't really say a lot in my opinion, in support of Winsome Earl Sears. He wasn't really too happy with how the debate went. Now, I'm not saying he did not say he isn't supporting her, but he just said he wasn't too happy. Sure. Yeah. On the other side, Don Scott was like, "Oh, Abigail did her thing, X, Y, and Z. You had full support." What's your take on this race between the two individuals?
Well, as you mentioned before, Norfolk State University, which is the largest historically Black college university in the Commonwealth of Virginia, was the site of the only gubernatorial debate here in the Commonwealth, which was historic. For the first time ever in the Commonwealth history, over 400 years, two females are at the head of their parties for the nomination to be governor. It was the first time we had an Black woman also at the head of a ticket that may have an opportunity to be governor. It was also held in a building that bears the name of the first African-American governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So a lot of history there. We were excited. I was excited to be an integral part of it, to help secure it and coordinate it here for the institution with our media partner. But also, as this race, as you mentioned before, it is historic, because no matter what happens, when we swear in our next governor, it will be a woman for the first time here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. With that, this race itself, I think, is going to be a referendum and also a vote for or against the policies of the White House, the policies of the Congress in the federal government. Things that are happening. It's about economics. When you look at these policies, we talked about it before. We talked about the government shutdown. We talked about DOGE. We talked about the lack of that. A lot of persons believe the lack of empathy or care or kindness that we see not coming from this. The lack of it coming from this White House and not given. But again, the enforcement, the harshness of the White House. Now, again, he won for a reason, because he received the majority of the votes. And there are a lot of people that really like the policies that are happening. But there are a lot of people that don't, even countries with the terrorists and the terrorist war and so forth that we're experiencing. Now, again, history will bear this out. So we'll see whether this was a great move or not on the terrorists and also the other policies to reshape government. But for right now, it's hurting.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty.
On both sides. I haven't heard any good news from conservatives or liberals about this.
Listen, money's great, right? If you're a conservative, somebody else is a progressive or a liberal, and you go in to buy a loaf of bread,
you pull out the same. That's right.
And you guys are both working at the same company. It's the same price, brother.
Very true.
Again, it's going to impact you. So right now, when you take a look at this race, there is a 7-point lead as of the last week of October between the both candidates. But also, what's very interesting is that that lead narrows And again, 7-point lead on the Democratic side. That lead narrows when you look at lieutenant governor, and it flips by 1% when you look at the attorney general's race, which of course we know was flipped with the incumbent now in the lead by 1% last week of October, because the Democratic challenger was leading by 3, but what we call a text message scandal that happened, or it's really an October surprise, a message that he sent 3 years prior in a private text chat with a colleague, who then it was exposed during the election. So, there it is. And what you find now is what will happen with early voting. We're seeing record high early voting, according to Virginia Public Access Project, also known as VPAP. Early voting is hit a record high this election cycle.
Wow, that's
I think speaks to what's happening, Arrington.
Yes.
But also what happens on the day of voting. That final push. Listen, make no mistake about it. And, this is my lane, right? So I love this part. Is at this point, you can still register to vote the day of voting, but for the most part, persons who are voting, they're locked in. And it's each candidate's job now to get out their voters in their parties to get to the polls. There are a few independents out there, a few maybe that will not really know where they're voting that you can help capture, but really the bulk of the votes are with your party. So it's going to be a record turnout for this election. We're already seeing record early voting turnout. So I think this election, and as I believe, as Virginia goes, so does the rest of the country. And Virginia is the cardinal in the cold run.
Very, very true, my friend. Very true. Look, I put up this graphic for those who are watching. A recent poll that I saw that was a VCU poll, but I'm looking at this on WTKR News 3, which is a CBS affiliate here in the Hampton Roads area. They're showing the poll, which is no shocking. Obviously, the poll has dropped for Jay Jones, who is the Democratic nominee for Attorney General. He is a former state delegate. He comes from a prominent legacy in the world of law and politics as well. And I had, probably dedicated 2 episodes length of just, one. It was kind of chewing into Delegate Jones, who I've met a couple of times in local. Very nice guy. Really very, very nice individual and extremely intelligent. Right. And so when I saw this text in my mind, and again, I'm looking from a strategy perspective, it's like, okay, for one, it's on text. Texas is never going to go away if that person doesn't, delete them or whatever. They're always going to find it, right? That's information for them. That's added, ammunition for their campaign. He texted to a Republican colleague, and in addition to that, it happened during a time where you have the right accusing the left of being the starter of political violence. So I just thought the timing was bad, even though this text message was in 2022, but it resurfaced during this election cycle. So we see that it hurt his polling. Now I will say, I watched the debate between the two. I think it was held at University of Richmond. Yes. It was pretty solid. Both of them, was pretty good in responding and respectful in a sense. But of course, the right uses this scandal as their tool to help, guide them. Did you want to say something, Dr. Claville?
Yeah, I'm just saying, they handled themselves like lawyers. It was over the closing statements, a little cross-examination.
Yes.
It was like a courtroom. So I enjoyed seeing it. It was like a law school lecture sometimes.
It really was. And one thing that shocked me, because as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't too shocked on the polling from after for Jay Jones. I actually had on the chair of the Virginia Beach Democratic Party, because they were one of the very few first groups that had acknowledged, had a public statement saying, hey, they're still standing with Jay Jones. I know a lot of individuals and community leaders and other politicians who is standing strong with Jay. And again, I get it. That's your nominee. That's who the majority voted for, and they're not fans of the current incumbent Jason Myers. Now, what I was shocked though, if I can pull this up here, was this polling. So between the lieutenant governor's race between State Senator Ghazala Hashmi, who we recently had on the program. Very honored to have her on. And then you have a conservative talk radio host in John Reed out of Richmond. And I'm like, wow, I see the elected official and a conservative talker, and the conservative talker who really in the primary, he was at last place. He was like at third place. Yeah. And so he wasn't he wasn't supposed to be that guy. And then earlier in the race, the Republican Party never saw eye to eye. In my opinion, I think they still don't see too eye to eye on this candidate, but he is their guy, right? I think you had one gentleman who didn't meet the qualification to move further in the race, and then there was another gentleman who left due to health reasons. So then boom, you have the final guy that's still standing, and that was John Reed. Now John Reed is really coming close. So what I'm getting with Dr. Claville is, did Jay Jones, did the tech scandal have added effect to the lieutenant governor's race in a sense, or is just this a sign of, well, the public wants to see a newcomer to politics, just the way we've seen of our sitting president, who had absolutely no political experience prior to becoming president?
This was a little different because you got the gubernatorial race and the attorney general, but out of the three statewide races here in the Commonwealth, the LG race is usually the one that doesn't get a lot of fanfare.
Could you explain to? No.
What's that?
Could you explain why? Because I say the same thing. I feel like the lieutenant governor's race always gets skipped over because it's like no one knows.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like the vice president debate, right? You only have one, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just not the sexy position, right? Mm-hmm. When you look at politics, it's not the position that has the most power. Mm-hmm. Now the lieutenant governor here in the Commonwealth presides over the Senate, and they serve as a tiebreaker. And there are some other ceremonial duties that they have, but it is really just like the vice presidency. It's really the unsung hero position, right? But this time around, you mentioned the Republican Party. They have a candidate that they really didn't want to run. If you go back and look at this race, and this ticket hasn't really run as a ticket or campaign as a ticket to last week was the first time. But when you take a look at this particular race, I don't think it's more so that this candidate is someone that persons want, but I think the Democratic candidate is a candidate a lot of persons don't know. I don't think there's been a lot of impactful campaigning to get out there statewide for that particular candidate. Again, campaigning is all about strategy. It's all about messaging. It's all about people. Being able to connect with the people. Listen, you're broadcasting. You're now in the market of my home state in Louisiana, and I'm so glad to see you spreading across the country. More people are now learning what I already know. This is a phenomenal talent that we have here.
Appreciate that.
In you, and the show is great. But in that particular state, we've had some great politicians that know how to work the room. Know how to shake hands, kiss babies, and the whole nine. And that's really what it's all about when you're campaigning. But it's also about substance. But in order for your substance to rise above, you have to be able to know how to campaign effectively, relate to the people. So I think you're probably seeing a lack of that on both sides in the LG's race. In the Attorney General's race, it was really all about, again, two great candidates, but it really was all about the October surprise. Mm-hmm. At this point, you really want to see what's going to happen at the top of the ticket. Like I said, it's about who gets their voters to the polls. More than likely, if you are a ticket voter, you're going to vote Democrat or Republican straight down ticket. Mm-hmm. So whoever gets the most Republicans, the most Democrats to the poll that are registered to vote, I believe they're going to win this race.
I couldn't agree more on that case. Look at it. We still have some time left. With this race, with these elections happening, and we have some pretty big, small, local races, that's happening around the 7 cities, from school board, from sheriff races, to council races. I mean, it's looking pretty intense. I think, but I think on the state level, on the the governor's race has really been catching the eyes of a lot of folks. And also, we have all 100 seats up for grab in the General Assembly, which is another big deal because currently the Virginia Democratic Party has the majority by, I believe, 1 or 2 seats. I think it's 1 seat, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. So it's not all seats in the General Assembly. General Assembly is for the House of Delegates and the Senate, but it's all 100 seats in the House of Delegates.
House of Delegates, yes.
Again, that's just the technical, state and local government guy in me, right? But it's very important because, we're, just like in Congress, every 2 years, election delegates have to run. So all seats come up. So now we see an opportunity where one side can keep power, which is Democrats have power, or the other side can overtake it. Given how the maps are run, it looks as if the Democrats will keep control of the House of Delegates. They already have control of the Senate because they're not running for re-election. So the question becomes, at what margin? Like I said before, this race is it's not just about who wins, but it's also about how big or small of a margin.
Very true.
That's going to be very important, not just for the Commonwealth, but for the country, to see exactly how voters feel about policies and also feel about the candidates that are running against or for those policies. So it's going to be very interesting. I will also say here in Virginia, as I think my last comment, as we take a look at races here, there are 2 races locally that I think are very interesting. You have a sheriff's race in a city called Chesapeake, which is the outskirts of Norfolk, which pretty much was the growth out of Norfolk. And in that, you have a longtime sheriff who ran in a primary against a newcomer who was on the police side, I believe. And with that, you saw where that longtime sheriff lost the primary, but is now running as independent. When we look at immigration and who's at the face of immigration reform in this country, it's Hispanic Americans. Those individuals from that particular culture and those countries. And when you look at the sheriff's race, you kind of see that too, right? Probably the reason why that longtime sheriff was not received the vote in the primary to run on that ticket, the Republican side. You also probably see the policies not being so far right or MAGA right, right? Is what we call that. Just like on the Democratic side, you be a Democrat or you're liberal Democrat, right? How far do you go or can go in your area to get elected or reelected? So that's an interesting race to watch. But I think probably the most interesting local race is Virginia Beach. Voting. Okay. There's a voting referendum. It's called a 10-1 or 7-3-1. What that means is that basically the city of Virginia Beach was the last city in the Commonwealth to actually have what's called at-large voting for local city council and school board representatives. We know that from past litigation, Voting Rights Act litigation as well, at-large voting, when you have minority population or non-white population in an area, is basically what it does, it dilutes votes of minority voters, right? So what ends up happening is that Virginia Beach had a system where a certain amount of city council and school board members were elected by districts, but then you had 4 others, meaning a mayor and 3 other city council that were elected statewide. So you were literally vote, if you're a local election, your city council person, then you have to vote for it at large, then you have to vote for the mayor, right? It's very confusing, but what that did, it basically did not provide the representation that the Voting Rights Act said it should. So now, because of a lawsuit, also a federal lawsuit that was filed, which was actually filed by a Norfolk State student, a female. She filed that lawsuit by herself. It was eventually picked up by a firm and also advocacy groups. And the federal judge agreed that that particular type of voting was not constitutional, or it was against the Voting Rights Act. It violated it. So therefore, the city of Virginia Beach started using 10-1, which is how basically person in the city of Virginia Beach vote now. The only issue is it had to be changed in the city charter. Then there was an issue whether the legislature could change it. So basically, they made a referendum to determine whether the people of the city want it. But even if the people of the city want a 10-1 or 7-3-1, which has never been used, by the way, in this last election cycle, is still against the Voting Rights Act. So then you go back to a 10-1, right? So
and Dr. Claville, and I hate to cut you off. We have about 20 seconds. I want to play a quick game, quick fire. Give me the turnout, the predictions. Okay, so we have the governor's race, the lieutenant, give me your predictions as well as the voting vote, as well as the sheriff's race. Who do you got?
Well, for the voting rights case here in Virginia Beach, I got the 10-1 out. The ticket winning is going to be close on the AG's race, and there it is.
Awesome. All right, we ran out of time here, but look, peace and blessings, y'all. I'll talk to you soon. Don't go anywhere, Dr. Claville. I want to chat with you just for a couple minutes. Peace.